Hey everybody, it's Javonster back again with Opus Gaming, and I'm here today to bring you our Purple Kaido deck profile. This is a leader that we've been playing on the channel quite a bit, and this is also a leader I've just been enjoying playing in the OPO1 format, just kind of in general a lot. I think it's really unique, and what the deck does is really cool in general. But before I get into the deck profile, if you've been seeing my content, been enjoying the content, and you're not subscribed, drop a sub down below. It helps us quite a bit. And if you have been enjoying these deck profiles and the gameplay videos and everything, drop a like. As usual, as I go through the deck profile, if you guys have any comments and questions or anything like that, drop a comment down below. But let's just get into Purple Kaido and what he does. So what the leader does is when he has a Dawn underneath him, when you delete one of your opponent's character cards, you ramp a Dawn to active mode. So where that's unique is that you get that Dawn to active mode as well as you're getting ramping on your leader. You're going to combine that with Onigashima to kind of get yourself to high life and be just playing big cards just like what purple does. And you kind of use blue as a way to facilitate some of your weaknesses. So let's get into the blue engine. We're going to start off with the blue stuff on the low end, which is going to be Perona and Trafalgar Law for our 1-drops. With Perona and Trafalgar, they represent kind of what you want to be doing with the blue engine for the purple stuff in general. So what Perona does, she helps with your consistency on play. She's a 1-cost, so you play her on turn 1. She reveals the top 5 cards of your deck, and you can either put those 5 to back to the top in any order, or drop them to the bottom of your deck. So picking up cards on curve, if you don't see an Onigashima, but you know that you're going to be ramping and you want to have certain cards for a certain matchup, she really helps you get that consistency piece, and she's really nice in that sense. She's a Thriller Pirate, which will come up a little bit later in the list. And then Trafalgar Law is just a 1-cost blocker. Purple doesn't have access to a 1-cost blocker in its regular list, so adding that from a second color is actually really handy, and you're going to see that you use it quite often. So those are going to be the 2 1-drops, and I think that we're going to be talking about a lot of different blockers and a lot of different kind of resource management cards. So along with the Trafalgar Law, Boa Hancock, they're both 7 warlords. So Boa Hancock, she is a 3-drop 1k blocker that plays out of your life as well. The one thing that hurts that is that you only play 4 life with this leader. So it does hurt with how consistent you can drop her for free out of your life, but those times when she does come out of your life and she just helps protect you immensely. A lot of times your opponent just doesn't foresee that, and it can just really help you get to those higher turns when then you're just clearing your opponent's board. So the 7 warlords are really important, as you'll see in just 1 second. We'll talk about the 4 Mihawk here, but let's talk about the 3 Gecko Moria. So with how important these are, what Gecko Moria does is, as a 4-drop, it gets you any of your 7 warlords or Thriller pirates out of your trash back to your hand. And what that really helps facilitate is just consistency, right? So you can block early on with a Law, pick it up, and then play it again for 1. And now you're just kind of like kiting out your opponent, getting through your early game really consistently and really easily, while also not really dumping cards from hand because you're picking up cards from your deck consistently without playing a whole bunch of cards. So that's really nice, and he's just really a consistency and a resource management piece. And then we have Dracula Mihawk. He's a 2k counter that that is also a 7 warlord, so you can pick it up out of your trash if you ditch it early, and that is just really nice to be able to have access to. So this whole package, all in all, is really a simple and really easy to kind of get through package. And then we're going to talk about the Mihawk. He's going to be a 9-drop. He gives you access to removing 7-drops, and that's really the biggest thing that he does for you. He doesn't have a Dawn minus effect, so even though your leader is ramping and everything like that, sometimes you do want to stay on higher Dawn so you can make sure that you're dropping high cards consistently. And with dropping a Mihawk, it's just really nice against things like 7-drop kids and stuff like that. When you can't even drop your 9-drop Kaido and have it be impactful, it's nice that you can play this and then kind of foresee your opponent playing a blocker or whatever else, and then play your 9-drop on the following turn. So he adds a little bit of variety to the deck, and I think that variety is really nice and really useful. Lastly, we have 2 Level of Mellow, and we'll be talking about some things that we're going to be changing about the deck at the end of the deck profile, but I can let you know that adding more Level of Mellows is for sure going to be coming. Level of Mellow is a fantastic card. When you're really grinding out and you're having to stay alive on 4 life, that means it's going to be demanding a lot of cards out of your hand, and this card being a really big block as well as a cycle, letting you draw when you're on 3 or less, is going to be really useful, and then something I've actually been using just a ton in the list in general. So We've got 2 of the level of Mellow. Now let's get into the purple stuff. This is still a purple deck, so it's going to be all about Onigashima Island. Starting off with this is going to be a really important card just because if you can get the double ramps off, you're getting up to your 10 Dawn threshold really, really early, and this card is just fantastic. So we're actually going to put this down here because it's like just pretty much the most important card in the deck. Getting into the next set of cards, we're going to be talking about some of the events cards, so let's talk about Elephant's Marchuet first. This card's amazing. If you are on 5 Dawn and you attach 1 on your leader, you tap 4, play this card, right? Your leader's going to ramp you an active Dawn, and this card's going to ramp you an active Dawn as well, which is going to put you up to 7 Dawn on that turn. Next turn, you're going to go up to 9, so that means that you can skip your 7 Dawn turn and just go from your 5 Dawn turn, get a little bit of board presence, do a little bit of stuff. You still have 2 Dawn to play with after you resolve all your effects. But on the next turn, you can either drop Mihawk or you can drop 9-drop Kaido. And I think that that's really, really important. So Elephant's Marchu is actually a fantastic card in this list. So let's set these up here and get into the other most important card. This card is fantastic for Blast Breath. With Blast Breath, the really nice thing with this is that, we'll actually put these over here. The nice thing with Blast Breath is that this is going to be your biggest defensive card, really. It only costs 1, so a lot of times what you'll do is kind of go through your whole turn, account for all your Dawn offensively, and if your opponent does something like block or whatever as you're attaching Dawn and going through, you get that 1 extra active Dawn, and you can just leave it active for your Blast Breath. It's really efficient. There's not a lot I can say about it. It's a really good card, but 4 Blast Breath is, I would say, mandatory. Getting into the character cards, we have our 2K counters. We have 3 Sasaki and 4 X-Drake. X-Drake is a playable card. You play it every once in a while, that's why it's at 4. And then with playing the Gecko Moria and the Mihawk package, I play a little bit less of the 2K counters just because a lot of times they end up just in your hand just to counter out. And we don't need that as much with this list, so we're just playing 3 of the Sasaki. He's not too important at all, so I don't really feel like I need to play more of him. Getting into the cards that trigger our leader, Who's Who is really good and really important in this list. He doesn't really let you actually ramp a Dawn, but he does cost 2 with your leader effect. So what he does is you tap 3 to play him. He Dawn -1 and cracks one of your opponent's character cards with a play cost of 3 or less. If you have a Dawn underneath your Kaido, after you delete that card, one of the cards that you tap to play him, right, you send that back for his Dawn -1 effect, and then you get that same Dawn back to active mode. Very important, and I really just wanted to make sure that like kind of play is explained, because it's just, even going into the late game, right, you can hold these all game. Your opponent just drops 2 low-end blockers, and you're just like, all right, tap 3. Get one of those Dawn back, tap 3, play this one, and then you still have a good amount of Dawn to be offensive with. So that's why Who's Who is so good in this list, but only playing 3 of them because he doesn't have counter power. This one I think I'm going to get the most hate on is just playing 2 Queen. Initially, the reason I only play 2 Queens is because actually when I'm playing through the deck, I feel like I'm holding this in hand as a 1K counter quite a bit, and I didn't like that because I felt like it was more useful than that. You just have so many blue blockers that you would prefer to field because they're cyclable, and they can just get back to your hand. The biggest time I want to see Queen, and I end up just holding Queen for this, is when I see a Perona. So I like organize my top 5, and I pick which 2 cards I want when I have a dead card in hand, and I just build this really powerful hand. And that's really nice, but I think that you can get away with facilitating that kind of play by playing 2 Queen. That's the reason I play it. I am changing that to go up on the number of that when I will be changing this deck, but we'll talk about that at the end. Talking about the next really important card that triggers our leader effect is 6-drop King. On play, Dawn -1 lets you delete one of your opponent's character cards that are 4 cost or less, and that is just really powerful because you can hit a lot of blue cards first of all, but I mean just hitting low-end cards is totally fine because you're getting one of those Dawn back to active. You can attach it onto the leader, and then since you had to have a Dawn on the leader already, ramping that 1 Dawn that you tapped out for the King means that you can reattach it to your leader. Now your leader's swinging for 7K, and just being more offensive in a consistent manner. So 2 of the 6-drop King is really good. I would add more, but it's just kind of a contentious spot. We're not really sure if we're going to be adding more of the 6-drop King. Next up, we have 7-drop Kaido, and this one is really important to talk about because this is probably the card that needs the most explaining. The main reason 7-drop Kaido is in here is because you can drop it on curve and it's really powerful. He can do Dawn -2 and give himself banish. And one other really quick note to make with him is that he's really easy to bait your opponent's blockers. So when you're doing things like you're tapping cards to play maybe a blocker for the turn, you can just go Dawn -2, get those 2 Don back, attach a Don onto your leader, attack with the Kaido. You can either force them to dump a bunch of cards in hand to kind of pseudo stop you from ramping the card, or they use the blocker, you get the Don back, right? That's a really useful way to play it, but I kind of wrapping this card up in a nutshell why it's so good in this leader is because this leader, being different than than pure purple Kaido, this leader ramps you cards. Pure purple Kaido really utilizes ramp to do a big Don minus effect, and this deck just doesn't have access to all that many big Don minus effects. With adding this card to the deck, you sacrifice the big Don minus effects that you get later in the game with that Kaido, and you're adding a consistent minus Don effect that's really easy to utilize. Utilizing a Don minus 2 on when you're on 10 Don, it lets you play essentially with 11 Don, right? Because you have 10 Don, let's say that you tap 5-4 or 6-4 like a king, or you tap 4 for a Gecko Moria. After you tap that 4, you use 2 of those Don, put them back to your Don deck, attach one of your still active Don to your leader, and then like I said before, you can either force a block, you can delete a card with a Who's Who or something like that, and now you're ramping that Don that was in your Don deck back to your main deck as active, and now that's a Don that you didn't have access before when you were using your 10 Don that you can utilize and put it on another character card or whatever else. This 7-drop Kaido is just really good, and that's really the reason why it's consistent Don minus, and it's not forcing you to tap a bunch of cards to use it. This is going to be a card that first of all, we're going up on 9-drop Kaido. We're not playing 10-drop Kaido just because I feel like it does it in this version of the deck starting on such a low life. It doesn't get you there. It doesn't remove enough cards, and it doesn't put you in a board state that's winning. And these 9-drop Kaidos are what's going to really help you kind of get to a board state that's winning. You want to be dropping these back to back by using your leader Kaido effect, because you're on 10 Don, attach a Don to your leader, tap 9, right? You play this Kaido, Don minus 5, now you're on 5 Don. Your leader will activate, ramp you to 6 Don, and then you'll tap your Onigashima Island to ramp to 7 Don. Meaning that next turn, you Don to go to 9 Don, and you can cycle these. And that's a really easy combo to pull off in this deck, and it's really kind of where you want to be focused on with the Purple Blue Kaido leader. He's a really good out to things like your opponent's 6-drop blockers, 5-drop blockers, even just the 4-cost blockers that are kind of sticky and hard to out. And he's a bomb card to be playing. He doesn't need a lot of explanation because it's one of your big bomb cards. He pairs really well when you're dropping like a 7-drop Kaido on curve or a 6-drop King on curve. And he comes out and he kind of just does a lot for the deck. So kind of I've talked about a lot of the cards that I would remove from the deck, but talking about an engine that I want to go into with this deck is kind of just surviving a little bit better. Relying on all of your different 2K counters and stuff like that is a good defensive option. But since we have access to Level of Mellow as well as Blast Breath, I think if we incorporate and we double down on utilizing Banish by adding a 7-drop Crocodile to pair with the Kaido, so that when we're dropping, so we lose that weakness to blue. When you're dropping multiple 7-drops over and over again, your opponent can't keep up with having to, because then they have to attach Dawn to deal damage to you, and as we say, we're a very defensive deck, so it's not going to push through. If you're staying alive and you're forcing your opponent to be dealing with these cards that are replaceable and they don't have counter and stuff like that in your hand, you can grind yourself into a better position. So I see myself going in a more like counter heavy strategy with this deck by incorporating the 7-drop Kaido, dropping some of the cards that are weaker, like the Boa, just because we're playing on 4 life. I think she's just better in the pure blue strategies, and just utilizing things like that, adding more queens, thinking about more kings and things like that, so we're constantly triggering our Kaido leader. But if you guys are interested in seeing kind of a version 2 once this deck is kind of built out and everything like that, let me know down below. And if you guys have made it this far into the deck profile, you've listened to all of my rambling and everything like that, and you enjoy it, drop a sub down below. I'd really appreciate it. We're really trying to get on the algorithm and try to build the channel and stuff, and we're really on our way to that 250 right now. So if you guys have any questions, drop them down below. But this is going to be Jamonster with Opus Gaming. I'm out. Take care.